So, Lisa, it's fantastic to meet you, and thank you so much for agreeing to do the podcast today. And I just want to start by saying that it's great for our audience and our viewers and our listeners to be able to meet someone else in the world of business. Now, for everyone that is listening and watching, we've not met before, which I think is quite nice for the audience to know and the listeners to know, because all these questions are genuine, proper questions, because I don't really know what you do. So would you mind by starting off and explaining who you are, what you do from a business perspective, and maybe what your passions and interests are, please?
Oh, there's a question there, Richard. I'll start with my main business, which is me, and it's a play on my name, Fit for More. Um, Slightly evolving business actually, but traditionally was around more about physical fitness, but now it's much more about mental, emotional, and physical fitness. So it's sort of a holistic view of your health, because one of the things I truly believe is that if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything. A lot of people, if you ask them what the most important thing is to them, they will answer my family, which of course is really, really true. But actually, if you haven't got your health, you're not going to be there for your family. So the main business is health and wellbeing coaching, personal training, life coaching. But I wear quite a few hats. So I also run a women's business networking franchise called the Athena Network, where I help entrepreneurs, business owners, female business owners to sort of grow professionally and personally. So I've got the networking franchise. And then on the side of that, I run a little radio show once a month on a local radio down here in Sussex on Brighton's Radio Reverb at the business show, where we talk, my co-host and I, we talk to other business owners about specific subjects. So that's me in a nutshell, really.
Thank you. That's great. And so out of those three different areas that you focus on, which one would you say is the one that excites you the most? Could you pick one of your favorite children?
Well, I think Fit for More is obviously my baby. That's where I started, but underpinning the whole thing is this wanting to help people to grow. So although they sound like diverse business in the three different things, underneath it all, it's all about helping people to grow in confidence, to be healthy, and to be fit for more. I suppose that's partly why I picked the name, really.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
works really well, doesn't it? Fit for more. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. So what got you into starting your own businesses and having that control, if you like, as to your own destiny and where you go and what you do? Can you remember where you first got the bug, and maybe does that link into a career previously, maybe, that you started with something and then that led on to being
Yeah,
self-employed?
yeah, I get it. I guess it does. I mean, the fitness side of things came from my family had a rather nice lodger who was a basketball player, and at 16 years old, I was sort of, you know, quite in love with him because he was very fit and healthy. He was lovely, but he used to take the mickey out of me because at that stage in my life, I wasn't very fit, didn't really play sport and stuff. And in my head, I thought, right, I'll show you. So I joined a gym and loved it. And that sort of led on to me taking my personal training qualifications when I was about 18. So I've always taught exercise from a young age, but that wasn't my career. I started off working in a bank, and then I ended up going into credit control, and then moved into sales and worked for quite a large organisation, part of GE, in IT sales, IT services and sales, and then worked for a company called Computer Centre till I was in my early 30s when I had my first daughter. And then that sort of typical, you have your maternity leave, you start thinking about, do I want to go back to work? And actually, that was very much the plan. I was going to go back to work, but decided at the last minute that perhaps that wasn't what I wanted to do. The company had restructured, so my job was in a different place. So I decided to take redundancy and to start up my business so that I could be there for my family. So it was very much it was a lifestyle choice, I guess, more than anything. And I have to admit, I never really thought of it as a business. For a long time, it was more about just earning a bit of money to keep the wolf from the door, and to be there for my kids. It was only really when I got divorced that I had to make that decision of, how do I manage to look after two children and go back into the corporate world, which I knew was going to be a sort of 6 a.m. till 7 a.m., 7 p.m. day, or do I actually turn this sort of work, hobby, love of my life into a business? So I suppose it was only once the girls were a little bit older that I really thought I've got to treat this as a business rather than as just a job.
So it's, I mean, I often use the phrase, side hustle. Really, it kind of started off as a bit of a side hustle, like you say, earning some extra money, and then with your circumstances, it was that choice of,
Mm,
does this become what I do for my life, or do I go back to what I know before?
yeah.
And so fitting around your circumstances, having the children, giving you some flexibility was a big plus. What would you say? Um, what would you say has been the biggest challenge? What do you find the hardest running your own business or businesses?
Oh, well, I think in the early days, it was very much about time, because when you've got little children, and I was a single mom doing it on my own, that I actually didn't have really any other support financially or physically. Um, so having to do it all on my own and having the time and energy to keep going was really hard. And I think probably the thing that's followed me most of my life, much less now, was that imposter syndrome, was that worry about, am I good enough? Who am I to be doing this? What are they going to think about me? And I suppose it was managing and that mindset, and that was very challenging, definitely very challenging.
And so, how did you cope with it? How did you get around that?
I think, well, one of the ways which seems quite bizarre, but one of the ways that changed my direction with my business, and that's probably why I've ended up doing what I do, was I decided to learn how to become a public speaker. So the scariest thing I could possibly think of doing, where everybody was going to judge me, everybody was going to hear me, was to stand up on stage and tell my story. That changed so much for me, really changed so much for me, that I realised then that actually what my story is can help a lot of other people. And really it didn't matter what other people thought about myself. It was what I thought about myself that mattered more than anything. So that
Yeah,
was, yeah, big
uh,
change.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's interesting that you picked such a challenging task as public speaking, because um, yeah, a lot of people talk about that being a fear, is to stand up and speak publicly. So so after you'd finished that talk, why then did you feel different? Because ultimately, if we stand away from what happened, is you had some challenges, your mind was going through certain kind of circular questions that you couldn't maybe escape from, and then you do this speaking event, and then all of a sudden everything feels better. Why would you say that happened then?
I think because I found me. I think that was the biggest thing. I found my voice and I found me. And actually, I found something that I'm quite good at, which was a complete shock, because, having worked in a sales environment, in a corporate environment for a long time, presenting or being on stage or talking in a meeting with lots of people, I found that really, really scary, really hard. And sadly, have to admit, there were a few times where I phoned in sick because I didn't want to give a presentation. So for years I put it off. When I so sort of backtrack a little bit, when I stood on stage and shared my story, before that I joined an organisation called Toastmasters, which is where you can go and learn to become a better public speaker. So that was sort of the start of it, in a nice, safe environment. But I then got an opportunity to go and stand on stage in Brighton, funnily enough, at an event called Inspiring Talks, and share my story. It was definitely realizing that I could just be me. I could speak the words I wanted to speak. And I do remember coming off stage and thinking, oh my God, what have I just done? Because it was recorded, it's on YouTube, everybody's going to see this. And then I had this fantastic feeling of, it's amazing, I've done it now. I've done it. It doesn't matter, I've done it. And then I just continued to do it because I enjoyed it. And I carried on with Toastmasters. And then I started to do more talking with my business, running lunch and learns and workshops. And I put together a big charity event to raise money for a local hospice, which I ran, I curated, and I had other speakers there, and I shared my story again. It just seemed to give me confidence. And it made me realise who I was. So it's difficult to describe it really, but it was that it unlocked a key to who Lisa really was.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful, and it makes me think of a number of different things. Really, it's almost like it was liberating. I remember when I was 15 years old, and ever since I was old enough and big enough to kick a football, that was all I ever wanted to do. It was just, that was it. It was football all the time. Whenever you saw me, I got a football, and I just used to play because I loved it. That was all I was interested in. Didn't have any aspirations to play for England or anything. But then one day at 14, 15 years old, I was walking across the playing field, and we'd finished training, and I spoke to one of my friends who was playing as well. And I said, "What are you doing at the weekend?" And he said, "Oh, I've got trials with Aston Villa Football Club." And the moment he said it, because in that actual situation, I was better than him. There was many players that were better than me, but in that one situation, I just knew I was a better footballer than he was because I knew how he played and I knew how I played.
Yeah.
And it was almost like instantly I had a light bulb moment, and it said, well, if he can do it, you can do it. It was like instant.
Yeah.
So that then gave me the permission and the opportunity and a vision to go and actually achieve something that I didn't even realize was possible. And I think that's what maybe has happened to you there, isn't it? It's like, oh, wow, look what you can do. There's a great book that you've probably read by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear.
Yeah, do it anyway.
And do it anyway. And I think that, if there's one thing that maybe our podcasters take from this is probably, things aren't actually quite as scary as they often seem. And taking that first step into something could actually be, that first step onto a fantastic journey that takes you on an exciting time, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually it was for me. It opened so many doors. And interestingly, the event Inspiring Talks Brighton, I ended up taking it over and running it myself for about, well, yeah, we closed sort of in the middle of the pandemic. But it was, every time I would turn up and I would run the event and I'd be on stage introducing people and talking, it was almost like an out of body experience, because it would be like, I could see my old self standing at the side of the stage going, oh no, you could never do that. And there I was on the stage doing it. But interestingly, having sort of spent a bit more time thinking and sort of looking back and understanding where this has come from, I remember as a little girl, a very little girl, wanting to dance and sing and be on stage, but never really tried it, never really pushed myself forward. So I think it was probably always there deep within inside me, and I just have allowed it to come out now. Not that I'm going to sing on stage.
So that's the next thing for you then, isn't it? Feel the fear and do it anyway. When you next sing on stage, please send me the recording.
I will.
Okay, so let's have a quick chat, if it's okay then, about the businesses you're running at the moment and maybe your plans for the future. So how would you describe happiness for Lisa? And I'm obviously thinking from a business perspective, but happiness can mean many different things to many different people. But what does happiness look like for you as a mom and as a business owner?
I think as a mum and a business owner, happiness to me is really that feeling in flow, and it's that feeling of calm and serenity and being in control, so that there is enough time for everything. A lot of the people that I coach, and especially mostly they are women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So they're stuck in this sandwich a little bit with elderly parents and young kids and stuff. And what they get frustrated about is not having that enough time. Um, so for me, happiness is, well, definitely being outside. I have to have that in my life, being physically fit, and yeah, just feeling like there's a flow. The energy is there. I'm feeling in control and not overwhelmed.
All right, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. So, okay, so on a business perspective, then, so let's hone into that for the moment. So, what are your plans for the businesses? Are you Do you enjoy them all that much? And the fact that they blend together, is it something that you see yourself carrying on, or, kind of almost how far into the future do you think and plan? Because one of the things I often talk about with people that I'm doing business coaching with is, you know, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you've got there, kind of thing? So, where are you in regards to the three businesses that you've got, and where do you see all of those in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the radio show is not really a business. I guess it's part of a hobby. It gives me something. So, and it's just a once a month thing. So I can see that carrying on, and maybe that might open more doors to doing more speaking and more presenting. So the two businesses, the networking and my business, networking business itself was very much, I felt that it would help me to grow my business. So it was a bit of a strategic move, really, because the women that come to the network are definitely my target market. So it made sense, really, to do that. But it's a franchise with a time limit. So I took the franchise on for 5 years. So my goal was and is that at the end of those 5 years, I will probably sell my franchise, and hopefully make back my investment and a little bit more. But there is potential to take it on for another 5 years, but I make that decision when it comes. Fit for More, it has definitely changed over the last 2 years because of the pandemic. It's forced me to change. I had a fitness studio, so most of the work was around the physical fitness with some coaching on the side. It's now turned itself the other way around. So I still have some personal training clients, but I'm actually coaching them a lot more than I was. And I'm now focusing on working with organizations, helping them with their staff, especially around burnout. A lot of people have struggled with burnout because of the pandemic. But I think there's a lot of anxiety, and a lot of people are struggling with low self-esteem and lack of confidence and things in the workplace. So that's the direction I'm going into. I've started working recently with one of the emergency services, and I've helped some of their sort of senior executives who did a lot of hard work during the pandemic. So the focus is looking to work with organizations more than just individuals that I meet at networking events or I meet online. I'm also looking at developing. I have got a program that I put together a couple of years ago, so I'm looking at developing that further and potentially creating a membership site, so that people can join the membership and get access to training and guest expert speakers and hints and tips about how they can keep themselves in that flow.
That's really interesting. So that membership site idea, would that be for individuals again, or would that now be for organizations?
It will probably be for individuals, but there's nothing to say that the individuals that I'm coaching within organizations, they won't,
Yeah.
they can have access to that.
Yeah, because if it's okay for me to Just expand on that, because I'm going through a similar thing at the moment, where as an organization, we started off very much as a B2B business. So our business programs have been picked up and developed with the MOJ. So we run quite a few programs in prisons, helping offenders prepare for when they come back out into the community, think about how they can take business startup ideas that they've developed with us, because when you come out of prison, it can be very difficult to
I can
get
imagine.
employment.
Yeah.
And so when COVID hit, one of the things that we started to explore was how we could start to provide additional value and benefits for our consumers
Mhm.
when they come out of prison, so that they could carry on accessing the content and the programs. And so we're going the other way, actually. We're now developing our B2C platform for individual people as a membership site, as part of our digital marketing campaign. So I'm interested because I know how challenging it is. I mean, I remember a marketing guru on the internet saying that going from a B2B business to a B2C business is like being an elephant and wanting to be a penguin. It's like really hard. So I'm just curious as to how you're finding that transition at the moment.
Yeah, well, because mine's going the other way from, business to consumer to.
You're
I am.
penguin to elephant rather than elephant to penguin.
Yeah, yeah, I'm turning into an elephant. I got chased by an elephant once on horseback. So, but that's another story for another day. Um, I think what's I've been very lucky in that all of the things that I've done in my life, I've met lots of different people. So the corporate or the business work that I'm doing has come from people that I've met. So it sort of happened by accident, even though it was something that I'd wanted to do. So it's almost like, the universe had answered me, but it didn't come in the way that I thought it was going to come. I thought I was going to have a real strategic plan about how I'm going to introduce myself into these organizations. But the emergency services work came to me through a person that came to Inspiring Talks Brighton and sat in the audience and used to come every month. So she'd met me, seen me on stage, and went, "You're the lady I need to come and help my stuff." So I guess it's been a little bit by luck. Now I am starting to be more strategic and thinking about, so the work that I'm doing with these three different organizations, collecting case studies, testimonials, being able to then go and talk to other businesses. I think the hardest part for all of this, it's always getting your first foot in the door. That's the hardest part. And I guess that's where networking comes in. So networking is really important. It's having those relationships, it's making those connections, it's forming those strategic alliances.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. So, on the next point then, and then I know we'll maybe have to start thinking about wrapping up in a few minutes. Where do you see are you going to set yourself a vision, a target, goals, or are you going to? How are you going to operate with this B2B business? Have you thought this through yet, or am I going into an area that you're maybe about to start thinking about?
I've sort of started to think about it. I worked with a business coach actually at the beginning of the year, and we did a little bit of work around it. It's not 100% clear. If I'm honest, it's not 100% clear. I think at the moment I'm going to see how the work is going with what I'm doing, because I think partly I need to prove that I can help. So it's having that backup to say, right, this is the process, this is the technique, this is how I work. One of the things I think working in businesses is, if I just go in and say, "Hey, I'm a health and well-being life coach, I can help your staff," they'll go, "Oh, can you?" So I feel that there needs to be some sort of framework, some sort of process that I can come in and show them. So it's still very much in the early stages. And I'm still at the point in my business where at the moment it's just me. I think the plan at some stage will be to get, an additional member of staff in to come and help with some of the admin behind the scenes. So by the end of the year, that's definitely my plan.
Okay, thank you. Really interesting. I mean, from my experience, just to share a couple of points from my perspective, is that that some of the contracts in business to business can be challenging to get. They can be good, they can be lucrative, but they can take a while to like you say, to capture and to manage and understand the nuances to make them effective. And of course, some of the other challenges then become, if those contracts don't carry on, that can then cause cash flow issues. And so one of the reasons why I flipped to the B2C model was I felt that that was something that I could control a lot more effectively. I knew that if I could create great value and great benefits to all my clients on the membership site, then it was all down to how I branded it, how we marketed it, the actions and the tasks that we're taking promoting on social media, and how we align that with a digital marketing campaign. So I just thought I'd share that with you, just as a, you know, as a someone who is very much operating in
Yeah.
quite similar fields to
And
you.
I think that, partly the reason why I want to have this membership site is that can be something that carries on regardless, and people are, they sign up to membership, so you've got that safety net. I think one of the things that has changed for me, when I had my fitness studio, it was very much done on a membership basis, so I knew what was coming in each month, what my outgoings were. It was predictable to a degree. There's obviously flex, you've got people leaving and coming, and then having lost the studio, that disappeared. I did move things online a little bit, but I had quite a big 60 plus ladies contingent, and they didn't really want to do it online. They didn't really enjoy it. So you suddenly lose a chunk of money, and you've got to figure out how you're going to get it back. So the membership side, which is going to be selling to individuals, will hopefully give me that base.
The other thing it does, of course, as well, is it's when you get the corporate clients, is you've then got somewhere for your corporate clients to go if they have got maybe things they would rather discuss personally or one to
Exactly.
one, and you can provide, depending what packages you sell into the businesses. Some of it might be that they get these extra benefits on the platform, which allows you to have users, test cases, and all of that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, two more questions then, and then we can wrap it up. So the first question is, what would you say then is the most challenging? What do you find the hardest of being a businesswoman?
I think I think it comes back to that time thing again, which I talked about in the beginning, is managing your time effectively is probably the challenging thing. It's because especially when you're a solopreneur, so when it's just you, you are you're everything. You're managing director, you're CEO, you're finance director, you're sales, you're delivering the service, you're project manager, you're marketing. Being able to prioritize and manage your time effectively is probably the most challenging thing for me. I'm not a great planner, yet I know the benefits of a great plan. So when I do plan and I work to a plan, everything's great. It runs smoothly. But I'm a bit of a not fly by the seat of my pants girl, but I'm creative, and I like to do things off the cuff. If I feel like I've got something to say and I want to hop on to Facebook and do a Facebook Live, I will. So yeah, planning and time management, I suppose.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And then in the last podcast that I did, which will be going on in the next week or so on our platform, I'd started getting a few people saying that it would be nice if I started to ask the same type of question to all the guests, because
Mm,
people would find it interesting to see the different responses. So the question I asked our last podcaster was, if you could go back now to a younger you when you started your career in business,
yeah.
what advice would you give that younger you?
uh, One first thing, believe in yourself. You're capable of more than you realize. So don't hold yourself back. And secondly, ask for help, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think the occasions where I have reached out and asked for help, life's got so much easier. And don't worry about what somebody might think. Just ask the questions, the silly questions. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah. I must answer these myself. Actually, I'll have a
Yeah, what would you do? What would
yeah,
you say?
yeah. Are you asking me now, or shall I
Yeah, I'm
shall I
asking
answer
you
that?
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting what you say about planning, because I remember Mike Tyson saying everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Um,
It's
and
probably
so
true.
I'm not very good at detail, so I get these ideas and I love developing ideas, so I'm very much a creative thought kind of process type of person. But then
Yeah,
when it comes to the pragmatic steps of, right, okay, now we have to go through this,
yeah.
I can find that a bit of a challenge. So I think I'd probably, if I was starting out in business again, I'd maybe say to myself, once you've got an idea that you think is going to work, check to see what the business model is. In other
Mm,
words, how you're going to make your money. Have a look at the profit margin, see how big you think you can grow it, and then work out what team members you might need or co-founders you might need, because everyone's got a different skill set. So don't try and do things that you're not very good at. Try and get the people in that are good at what they do, because
yeah.
that just is something that I've found out that works. So
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good advice for a lot of people actually. And I think it's quite a hard thing when it's your baby and your business, and also when you're trying to, you know, justify and manage profits and margins and all that stuff. The thought of getting somebody else to come in and do it, and they might not do it as well as you, that's a bit of a struggle, isn't it, for some people?
yes, it is, and we're going through that now at our organisation. Where we're growing, we've got more and more people coming in, and it's wrong of me to expect everyone to have the passion and the drive for my own business. However, you still want people to understand and recognise where you're trying to get to, and what you stand for, what your values are, what standards you expect. It can be a challenge, but however, I think it goes back to what we were saying before around what makes you happy and what you're trying to achieve with your business. I think if you're clear on those, then you can kind of decide how you are going to scale and grow. And I think
Yeah.
technology is such a big multiplier today. You can, your membership site idea, please do let me know when you look to take that forward. If I can be of any help, I'd love to
Yeah, thank
help. But
you.
we've just launched our beta platform, and we're getting feedback now before we roll that out. And there's a lot of challenges that go along with it, but I think there's no reason why you couldn't have 10,000 members on your membership site paying £25 a month for your program. So £250,000 a month. I think everyone that's watching and listening, we've got their attention now. So it's how would you do that? And I think that it's definitely feasible and possible with technology. So
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot over the last couple of years, actually, how much technology can help businesses, even if they're face-to-face businesses. You know, you can use the digital world to generate more.
well, exactly. And look at this call. We'd never met before. We've been introduced through LinkedIn. We've now done a podcast together, and yeah. So technology does work, and I would just like to take this opportunity of really thanking you for taking your time out today and joining me on this podcast. And it's been a pleasure to hear about who you are and what you do. And maybe if you don't mind, in the future, you'd come back and let us know how you get on with your B2B contracts and how the membership site goes. I'm sure that our viewers and listeners would be interested to find out how that goes.
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure. It's been really really great to meet you, Richard. It's really been good.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.